everyone. Well, there are many opportunities to get together, to learn, to fellowship, and to have some good fun. Beginning with, of course, worship this morning. So you are in the right place at almost the right time to celebrate God's creation. For fellowship hour, we are asking that you meet together with your hives. I'm already seeing little bees everywhere in the room, so that's great. You see what's up with each other and what you might want to do during the summer months. And if you're a guest with us this morning and you just have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, that's okay. I don't either. No, I'm kidding. Just come on back to fellowship hour and we have people who will help you join in the fun. Then, this afternoon, 3 p.m., in this very room, Valley Women's Ensemble will share some great music with you. Tickets will be available at the door. Then, lunch with a bunch is happening next Saturday. There's an article about it on page 4 of your order of worship. Make sure that you sign up in the narthex today so that they'll have a record of who's going to show up. It's always a fun time. Then, Jennifer Hoppy's student recital will be happening next Saturday as well in this room at 1 p.m. It is always a great time of music with some budding artists. So you could go and do lunch with a bunch and then come back for a great afternoon of music. It would be a great time together. Georgia, I see you there. Why don't you come up and tell us what's on your mind?
It's a secret.
Okay.
Jim asked me to shorten this up, so I'm going to skip through some of what I have. Good morning. My name is Georgia Feisty, and I'm here to tell you about what the Doing Grief Community Healing Project is doing. On Saturday, May 4th at 9 a.m., we host the World Labyrinth Day Walk for Peace with Dr. Robin Dilley. I'm quite positive that these walks raise the energy vibration of the earth every time they occur. It's really the place to be on May 4th. On Saturday, May 11th at 9:30 a.m., there will be an interactive poetry performance with Jack Evans and his guitar-playing creative partner, Tom Bell. Also, Reverend Shay Darian will soon be starting new Healing Circle Spiritual Direction small groups. These small groups will meet once a month. If you're interested, please contact Shay today if you'd like to learn more. And there are brochures about healing circles out on the narthex table. There's a lot of options to choose from, and I have one more. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. If you do fit under the umbrella, please raise your hand. Do you have a family member that falls under the LGBTQ plus umbrella? Keep your hands up. How many of you have a friend who is under the umbrella? Raise your other hand. Last question. If you identify as LGBTQ plus, please raise your hand. And if you need another hand, borrow one from your neighbor. Look at all those hands. Isn't that beautiful? You can lower them now. You don't need to keep them up. Okay. We would like to see all of you who raised your hands because we've had questions as to who should come to these story circles. On April 28th at 2 p.m. in King Hall, Deb Bontadelli, Andy Jordan, Susan Princehouse, Shay Darian, Mark Mikowski, and I will be leading story circles for family and friends of loved ones from the LGBTQ community. This will be a great time to briefly tell your stories and hear other people's stories. It's our hope that these story circles offer a place of meaning, hope, healing, and a sense of belonging, a community within our larger community. We would like to see them become a regular gathering. To find out how to RSVP, grab a flyer in the narthex or outside the chapel and sign up today after worship. And for those that of you are watching online, you can visit the Healing Project at doinggrief.com. I want to leave you with my favorite quote. When you get the choice of what to do in any moment, whether to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance.
Thank you. Thank you. As you can tell, there are many ways to participate here at the Church of the Palms, ways to donate, ways to educate, ways to reach out beyond ourselves. This is not your grandma's church. Exciting things are happening here. Speaking of grandma, Pastor Paul, how's the birthday month going? I said, how's the birthday month going? Man, the Whitlock house knows how to party. Wendy's birthday was yesterday. Happy birthday to you. Inquiring minds want to know, did he remember? All right. Well, did y'all go to happy hour? Did y'all take a nap? Okay. Well, you know when you're old, when your back goes out more than you do. I understand that. All right. Well, we'll check on you next week, okay? Come on up here and welcome us to worship. Shari. There she is. Come on up. Okay.
Good morning. Today is Earth Day 2024. I wish it truly could be every day. The Earth would benefit greatly, and our progress would be more visible. Today's service is brought to you by the Creation Justice team, and we would love to have you hang with us if you're interested. Just catch any one of us at any point. It is important, especially today, that we acknowledge and bring awareness to the land on which we are located. Land acknowledgement is an indigenous protocol used to express gratitude to those who reside here and to honor the indigenous people who have lived and worked on this land historically and presently. We gratefully acknowledge, and I mean gratefully acknowledge, the native peoples who were the original stewards of the land, of which we could learn so much. On the land on which we gather, the Hohokam, the O'odham, and the Pima Maricopa, as well as the diverse and vibrant native communities who make their home here today. Some of you may wonder, why Earth Day? What can one person do? How can I impact this huge Earth of ours? What's the purpose? One person cannot possibly make a difference, you say. Well, our group is here to tell you otherwise. You may not recognize me. I'm not up here ever. But you may have read my little blurb in your monthly palm leaf about sustainability and reuse and recycling and all of that. So hopefully I'm in the back of your mind a little bit. Genesis 2:15 tells us, and I quote, humans are commanded to care for God's creation. Not corporations, not committees, not churches, not any other kind of entity, but humans. And that means each and every one of us. No matter whether we're a part of a corporation or a part of a church or a part of some other committee, each and every one of us is responsible for our share. The more we discuss it, the more we educate others and let others know how important it is, those conversations may stick. I learned in one of my college classes one time that someone needs to hear about God 14 times before they begin to believe it. I'm kind of hoping that that's true with creation justice, that the more people hear about it, that eventually some people will start to believe in the science behind it. Reflecting back on Pastor Jim's message of 3:17 this year, we haven't kept our creation justice covenant with God very well. We've not done well either taking the advice of our Native American siblings. We've used the land for profit, thought nothing of polluting the air and tossing trash into the waters because it benefit us to do so at the moment. And today we hope to bring you more awareness, maybe a few interesting tidbits to remember as we worship together on this Earth Day 2024. And always remember, as Georgia just reminded us, the Church of the Palms, United Church of Christ, is a progressive, open, and affirming Christian church in Sun City, Arizona. Our mission is to share God's unconditional love, justice, and extravagant welcome. No matter who you are, where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Terry Starr, and I'm part of the Creation Justice team here at Church of the Palms. And happy Earth Day. Please join me in the call to worship, which is on the screens. Scripture tells us that creation waits with eager longing for the children of God to be revealed.
Creation is waiting for us.
To open our eyes to the devastation of our world.
Creation is waiting for us.
To put the needs of the most vulnerable above the greed of the powerful.
Creation is waiting for us.
To move from what is easy to do, remove what is easy to do, what is necessary and right.
Creation is waiting for us.
To prioritize the needs of community over convenience of self.
Creation is waiting for us.
To remove pollution from our seas, land, air, bodies, and hearts.
Creation is waiting for us.
In all of these things and more, creation waits for us to assume our roles as its servants and protectors.
With God's help, we will answer creation's call. Amen.
Please stand in body or spirit and join us in the hymn, Morning Has Broken.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them streaming fresh from the sweet the rains to fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in the meekness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden's someday. Praise tribulation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new
This morning, we have some quotes from some people that you may have heard of, maybe not so much for some others. But hopefully, all of them will have some sort of an impact. Do we have the first one? There we go. Pope Francis. I think we all pretty much know who he is. Pope Francis said, wow, when nature is viewed solely as a source of profit and gain, this has serious consequences for society. This vision of might is right has engendered, I gotta do shorter quotes next time. Immune inequality, injustice, and acts of violence against the majority of humanity. Since resources end up in the hands of the first comer or the most powerful, the winner takes all. Completely, thank you so much. Completely at odds with the, okay. I can read, guys, honestly. I can. Like harmony, justice, integrity, and peace As proposed by Jesus. Thank you. Holy cow. I'm so sorry for that. I should have had them up here with me. Thomas Berry. Thomas Berry, another person you may know, maybe not so much, had to say, that's a nice one, we are losing splendid and intimate modes of divine presence. George Washington Carver, a teacher, a speaker, wanted to tell us, reading about nature is fine, but if a person walks in the woods and listens carefully, he can learn more than what's in books, for they speak with the voice of God. And Jane Goodall, naturalist. We all know her and love her as living with the monkeys, right? Jane told us, you cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. And lastly, we have the Dalai Lama. I think we all know who the Dalai Lama is. And he told us, gosh, I hope it's a short one. If you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito in the room.
Good morning. Just a quick word before I read today's scripture and introduce our speaker, Sarah. As you look around our church, you see the efforts of our Creation Justice team in action. Some of the things you might see: LED lights, energy-saving HVAC system, ceiling fans, compostable and reusable food and drink containers, solar panels, and most recently, a hybrid truck to pull our shower trailer. None of these things would have occurred without the efforts of a small group of folks who encouraged us to take the right path. So, a tip of our collective hat to the current and past members of our Creation Justice team that moved our church from an energy-consuming church to an energy-conserving and creation-conscious church. The current Creation Justice team, Beth Moore, Terry Starr, and Shari Kanehl, and past members, Andrea Stefanoff, Nancy Suchia, Joyce Stoffers, Pam Clark. Other contributors, Ron Schultz, who built our coffee cup tree. And of course, our clergy, both retired and active, who have supported, encouraged, provided sermons, and or made major contributions to the cause of creation justice. Howard Schenk, Bob Carlson, the late Clint Reynolds, Shay Darien, Paul Clark, and Susan Prince House. To all of you, and of course our own pastors now, who are our greatest cheerleaders. So how about a round of applause for those folks? So our scripture today comes from John chapter 10, verses 7 through 10 from the Living Bible. These verses should be taken in the context of John's gospel message, which was that Jesus came not to condemn, but to save, urging us to choose the right path. Starting with verse 7. So he explained to them, I am the gate for the sheep, he said. All others who came before me were thieves and robbers, but the true sheep did not listen to them. Yes, I am the gate. Those who come in by the way of the gate will be saved and will go in and find green pastures. And finally, verse 10, the sheep's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. My purpose is to give life in all its fullness. Okay, and now to introduce our guest speaker for the day. Sarah King is a faith-based and community-based environmental leader. She's a green team leader at Dove of the Desert United Methodist Church, employed by Phoenix Clean and Beautiful as a program coordinator for community engagement activities. This group is responsible for public speaking, coordinating community cleanups, and presenting school programs about recycling. She's a contract employee for the City of Phoenix, helping to introduce the city's recycling program. Responsibilities include presentations about recycling at community centers and schools. Sarah is a member of the chair of the Earth Care Commission for the Arizona Ecumenical Council, a member of the chair of Cherishing Creation Collaborative for Arizona Faith Network. She's a leader of environmental studies for Desert Southwest Conference United Methodist Women's 3-day seminar on faith and the environment, part of a larger social weekend meetup for the United Methodist Women. And currently she is chair of Cherishing Creation Collaborative, a subcommittee of Arizona Faith Network Social Justice Commission. Finally, Sarah is a featured speaker at many churches in Phoenix, Tucson, and Flagstaff. She's been a long-time volunteer for many environmentalist activities through the Sierra Club, CHISPA, Great Old Boards for Wilderness, and Grand Canyon Trust. Please help me welcome Sarah King.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And good morning, church.
Good morning.
Thank you. This is truly a day that the Lord has made, and we should all be glad and praise Him today as we talk about Earth Day. I'm just going to take a moment here to pull up my presentation. Well, so far you have heard from, I'm being told there's no internet. Okay. That should not have been a problem because there it was. Hang with me just a moment. Okay, here we go. Computers. You love them and you hate them, right? Okay. Well, so far this morning you have heard from Shari. You've heard from Pope Francis. You've heard from Thomas Berry, George Washington Carver, Jane Goodall, and the Dalai Lama. And now you get to hear from Sarah King. I just hope I can, I can never be on an equal level with them, but I will try my best. As we celebrate today Earth Day, we're reminded of the abundant waters, the soil, the sunshine, and the air that are what make this planet unique. Indeed, the scriptures are full of descriptions of the wonders of the earth and God's great delight in them. But we're also reminded of the fragility of this planet, that we as human beings are straining its resources to the limit, and that we, as the designated stewards of the earth, are currently struggling in our efforts to protect, preserve, and above all, honor this gift of creation. I've titled my message, Taking Out the Trash, as a way of lifting up Creation Justice Ministry's curriculum that some of you are familiar with, entitled Plastic Jesus. Indeed, this topic is tailor-made for me. I spent many years of my life, as John mentioned, educating people about trash, landfills, and the 3 R's. Anybody know what they are? Reduce, reuse, recycle. There we go. Okay. As the program coordinator for Keep Phoenix Beautiful, and then as a contract educator for the city of Phoenix, I was there for the introduction of the city's recycling program in 1999, with the placement of the now famous blue bins with the recycle logo on it. I also spent many hours inside the Recyclesaurus costume. In case any of you were at a City of Phoenix function during that time when the city was doing their big grand opening of the recycling program, you would see this mascot. And it was a great big dinosaur costume. And I was oftentimes inside that costume. It was very hot. I was so happy when they introduced the little fan inside the head part, because otherwise I would have to take 5-minute breaks just to breathe. I also spent a lot of time dressed in trash and became known as the garbage lady as I taught recycling education programs at schools all over the city. You could find me in just about any school in the city, wandering down the corridors, making swoosh and can noises and things like that as I moved from one classroom to another in my trash costume. I learned a lot about taking out the trash in my years at those jobs. I learned a lot about landfill science. I learned a lot about the emergence of a new branch of archaeology, which was then known and still is known as garbology, the psychology of littering. But the main thing that stood out for me as the city introduced this recycling program was the vexation of the landfill managers and the city sanitation departments all over the city bemoaning, what do we do with all this plastic? One of the worst offenders, of course, in the plastic collection process was the plastic bags. They get stuck in the conveyor belts at the MRFs, the materials recycling facilities, and they can gum up the whole works and shut the facility down for hours, if not days. These are a problem. This became to be known among many of the people who worked there, and my office for Keep Phoenix Beautiful was right there at the landfill. It was kind of a trash titan, you know, one of those big, horrendous things that nobody quite knows how to deal with. Now I'm going to take a step back here and ask you to sort of imagine a split screen scenario on a movie screen. On one side of the screen are the people of the book of Genesis, who, according to the parable, come to a plain in the land of Shinar. Correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And they say to one another, "Come, Let us make bricks and fire them thoroughly. Let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. And on the other side of the movie screen, imagine this scene from the movie, The Graduate. And I know some of you know where I'm going with this, with Dustin Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman plays Benjamin, who's a recent college graduate who's attending a party held in his honor by his parents. Now, in this scene, Benjamin is pulled to the side by a neighbor of some wealth and power who is known as Mr. McGuire. Mr. McGuire asks Benjamin if he has thought what he's going to do with his future. When Benjamin admits that he has not, McGuire tells him, Benjamin, I'm going to say one word, just one word. And of course, there's that moment of silence, suspenseful, and then McGuire says, plastics. There is a great future in plastics. Well, another Berry, Wendell Berry, tells us that idolatry always comes down to worship of something made with human hands. For the people in the Genesis story, it was a tower built by the people that could reach into the heavens in order to make a statement about their great achievements. In the case of Mr. McGuire, it was plastics. Now, Mr. McGuire was not wrong about plastics. The first synthetic plastic was developed in 1907. But manufacturing began in earnest during World War II, with production of plastics in the U.S. increasing by 300%. A lot of those products were very valuable. They made a lot of things easier for our troops to move from place to place because they were lighter materials. They contributed to much more sterility and cleanliness in hospital because we have these disposable, one-use syringes and things like that. The use of plastics and the production of plastics has grown exponentially in recent years, with half of all plastics ever made produced in the last 15 years alone. Every year, 8 million tons of plastic enters our oceans. With the latest count of individual pieces of ocean debris, now I don't know how the scientist was able to do this, but he came up with a number of 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic in our ocean alone. On land, 40% of the trash in our landfills is plastic. And that includes everything from plastic bottles, bags, diapers, computers, toys, car parts, you name it. And landfills are running out of space, especially in the eastern part of the country. Many of their landfills are scheduled to be closed within the next 10 to 15 years because there simply isn't any more space. While we out here in the West have a little bit more space to mess around with, not much. And fewer countries are willing to rescue our trash due to sanitation problems and safety concerns, as they well should be concerned about. But the lack of space isn't the only problem with plastics. There are also the impacts on human health. I'm sure many of you are aware of what is called Cancer Alley, which is a group of communities along the lower Mississippi, which have incredibly high rates of different types of cancers due to exposure to water and air pollution by oil manufacturers there. And oil is the basic component of our plastics. So these people are suffering. Microplastics have been discovered in the organs and tissues of fish and other sea creatures, land animals and birds, and primates, including ourselves. In fact, the total mass of microplastic particles consumed by adults today correspond to 50 plastic bags per year. I have a prop here. That boils down to 1 credit card a day that you are ingesting. You want some mustard with that? Maybe some fries? Medical experts are now making correlations between plastic consumption and reproductive irregularities, obesities, organ problems such as liver and kidney problems, developmental delays in children and allergies. Even more horrific, measurable amounts of microplastics are now showing up in the milk of breastfeeding mothers. Remember how so many little girls grew up with the hope of being just like Barbie? Well, we're getting closer to the point where those little girls may very well end up being Barbie. So, what's a good Christian to do? Search the scriptures, for in them you shall find, I don't know, the answer to the plastics problem? Well, unfortunately, there's no chapter in the Bible that addresses plastics. There were no plastics in biblical times. There were landfills. I don't know if you knew that, but there were landfills. People would put their trash out, and workers on donkeys would come by and load up the trash and take them to a landfill on the outside of town. But nowhere in those landfills was plastic. Fortunately, in the scriptures, you will find a lot of revelations about what behaviors are behind the plastic problems. And these behaviors, or these change in behaviors, will finally enable us to take out the trash. In Psalm 148, the writer talks about the greatness of God and the way God's creation praises the Creator. It calls upon the heavens to praise God, the angels, the sun, the moon, and the stars. The psalmist then goes on to highlight how the created earth praises God and reflects God's power and glory through the weather, the plants that grow and flourish, and the animals, through their howls and their barks and their whines. They praise God. Fast forward to today, somewhere along the line, and I think Shari pointed this out, we seem to have lost our delight in and our ability to see the world for the miracle that it is. Instead of spending time enjoying nature, we seem to spend a lot of time finding ways to destroy what God has given us by polluting our air, polluting our water, polluting our soil, and putting unwanted trash in landfills where, if a leak would occur, the debris from that landfill can pollute the water and pollute the air through the release of methane. This is not taking out the trash. It is literally bringing it in. Psalm 148 also encourages us to renew our covenant with the earth, delight in it, love it. If we truly love something, we are less likely to do harm to it. So you can ask yourself, how are my daily habits impacting creation? Shopping, travel, food choices, every little thing you do throughout the day impacts our waste stream. And further, the scriptures urge us to look into ourselves, for without inward transformation, all our actions will be for nothing. In the book of Luke, chapter 12, verse 15, Jesus says, watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Jesus urges us to choose people over property reminding us that the love we share and the lives we influence are infinitely more important than all of those objects with which we surround ourselves. As demonstrated in Genesis and The Graduate, our split-screen scenario, we see that the idolization of inanimate objects inevitably leads to chaos and unhappiness. I'd like to end this talk with a little demonstration I used to do in classrooms. Now, in the classroom, I have a knife. I'm going to use it. They probably would not have let me in here had they known I was armed and dangerous. But in this exercise, it's usually known as the apple of our eye. Well, I looked in my refrigerator today, and that round thing at the bottom of the fruit bin turned out not to be an apple, but potato. So this one is going to be called the potato of my eye. Okay, this potato represents the world, the planet Earth. Okay, I'm going to cut this into 4 quarters. Okay. All right, I'm immediately going to set these 3 quarters aside because it's water. This is all the water, the rivers, the lakes, the oceans, that we can't grow food there. We can't really put anything much. Well, we do put our trash in the water, but besides that, I have 1 quarter of the planet left. And I'm going to cut it into thirds. Okay. This third represents all of the land that is uninhabitable. It's desert, it's mountain, it's rocky, it's a place where you can't grow anything, it's a place where it's difficult for people to live. This third is places on Earth that could be used for growing food, but are instead filled with parking lots and shopping centers and office buildings and homes and things like that. So I'm setting that aside. This third is what's left. Now, this is the hard part. Cutting this into thirds as well. You can see we're getting down to just little bitty pieces of the Earth left here. Okay. This third, well, no, I take it back. These 2 thirds, because this is all the area that we have left to grow food for the entire world, right? This 2 thirds is being set aside because this is the land that we're using to grow food for animals. What we have left is this very, very thin piece. And now I'm going to decimate it even further by cutting off the peel and discarding the rest of the potato, because it's this peel that is feeding all of the people on Earth. Think about it. Can we spare 4 landfills in which to bury our trash? I congratulate you, the people of this church, a warm, welcoming, wonderful place to be. And all of you are doing warm, wonderful, welcoming things in order to protect and conserve and to honor our Earth. Thank you for that. But we can do better. We must do better. The sustainability of our world depends on it. So I welcome you to continue this walk with me, and we'll figure out sustainable and just ways to take out our trash. Thank you so much.
sing together. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? What they're really saying is, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, yeah.
What a wonderful world. We've gathered as a community to pray. I wanted to just remind you of our prayer list in our bulletin packet. Those people are dependent on you to pray. I do want to mention that we had a graveside service for Don Olkey and family and friends. And yesterday we had a celebration of life for Jim Chapman. Look at those prayer lists, though, and pray for those people this week. Let us now go to God in prayer. For the blessing of this wonderful, wonderful world, we give thanks. Help us to be good stewards with our words and our deeds. We can do better. We must do better. Help us be good stewards with our words and our deeds. For all of creation, we give you thanks, O God, for the water and the earth and the sun and the air. Help us not take those things for granted, but to be good stewards with our words and our deeds. For all of creation, the gift of each other, the flora, the fauna, we give thanks. Help us to be good stewards with our words and our deeds. Help us to make every day, O God, an Earth Day, a day where we can make a difference, where we will make a difference, so that for generations to come, people may see you in all of creation and know that you are God. We can do better. We must do better. Help us to be the good stewards you call us to be with our words and our deeds. We ask these things in the name of Jesus, who taught us to pray, praying, Our Creator, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
There are many signs we claim for our faith, but ultimately it is our active love of our neighbors and our creation, God's creation, that reveal who we worship. So as the plates come around this morning, commit to give of your whole selves. Give of your talents, your material possessions to the church with the expectation that they will be used to further God's kingdom, God's dream here on earth. Ushers, will you wait on us? Creator God, we promise to use these gifts for good. We promise to use these gifts in furthering your realm. We commit to use these gifts in love and mercy of all your creation. We lift them to you now. And God's people said, Amen. Amen.
Well, we've come to the end of our service, and our challenge now is to go out and be the good stewards God calls us to be. To care for the earth, to care for each other and all of creation. Now, our ending piece is apart from the choir, so I'm going to start the journey that way towards the choir so I can join them. I'm told you're not supposed to stand. Is that right, Pastor Jim? There'll be a slide when you stand, so go and be the people, be the church. I hear there's a hive activity going on. At least that's what Hive heard. And join your group, join whatever group you want to do, but be the church in word and deed. Thanks be to God.
Rejoice in the Lord, rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord, rejoice.